here. We can all go vote now. Yeah, who likes it?
Woo!
Yeah. Who hates it? Yeah, of course you like it. We all like it here. We're a very sex-positive room, and we love sex. We love sex toys, which makes sex even better. I don't need to convince you of that. Unfortunately, once we leave this bubble, we sometimes, we're up against a very sex-negative society, by and large, for many different reasons. For one thing, it's a very narrow definition of sexuality. We have shit choice in sex toys, shit for choice in how we can act on our sexual desires. We're all unique. We are special snowflakes. We all have our own desires and preferences. But we're up against a commercial sex toy industry that treats sexuality as one size fits all. So, what do we get? Uniformity. Same thing over and over again. It's all uniform, except for what's about to come. But that's the exception that proves the rule. And so there's very little room for deviating from that narrow, uniform definition of sex. In our society, most sex is stigmatized and no good and shit. Oh no, it's just the video. And we have no privacy. It's increasingly scarce. There are even laws that intrude on our privacy in very bad ways. Alabama has a law that they passed in 1998 called the Anti-Obscenity Enforcement Act, which criminalizes the sale of sex toys. Ooh, Alabama. It's also only been 10 years, if you could believe it, since sodomy laws were repealed by the Supreme Court in Lawrence versus Texas. And to use a more recent example, Russia is waging war on gay, so behaviors that were perfectly legal suddenly become illegal. And this is no good. We can't sit around and wait for this bad public policy to go away. We have to find ways around it. So, what do we do? 3D print our sex lives. So this is a great way to take charge. 3D printers, they're pretty new as far as being widely available goes, but they're going to become more common and they're becoming more effective, less expensive, and so we're going to be using them more. And so this is a great way to print our sex toys just the way we want them. 3D models are infinitely customizable, so 3D printing allows us to take charge and make what we want and deserve. We're hackers. In all other pursuits, when somebody is not giving us what we want, we don't sit around and take it. We do it our damn selves. So that's great. 3D printing sex toys also gives us privacy. We can embrace our own personal kinks without any fear of judgment because no one has to know. We can design and print our toys exactly the way we want them, even if our desires aren't kosher. No one has to know but us. And as far as the Alabama law goes, it doesn't say anything about manufacturing toys for your own use, just not selling them. So this is a good way to get around a bad piece of legislation. They don't even have to learn how to spell 3D. With apologies to Alabamans in the room. And this is also great for discovery. In the commercial sex toy industry, the inflated price of toys is often a huge barrier to people broadening their sexual horizons. If something's expensive, you're not sure about it, you're not going to try it. And so you never really go anywhere, take any risks. So 3D printing is easy, it's cheap, and so this gives us a great opportunity to try out new toys in unfamiliar shapes, and this is an opportunity that's completely unmatched anywhere else. So, okay, what can we print? 3D printing has infinite possibilities. We start with nothing, so we can make anything. We can print toys. We can also print molds to pour toys into. You can draft a model of the toy and then print the inverse. The most common types of toys are those designed for penetration, dildos and butt plugs. You may have heard of them. These toys are pretty basic shapes, so they're fairly straightforward. So you can design them pretty quickly and with a pretty remedial knowledge of computer-aided design or CAD software. It doesn't take a lot to do pretty powerful things. So in addition to the insertables, we can also print toys for BDSM and other kinks like handcuffs, paddles, loggers, other implements of wonderful torture. So this is, like I said, great for privacy. With the overall negative attitude our culture has towards sexuality, sexual privacy is paramount. So 3D printing gives us a way to, bypass that awkward moment at the sex shop when you're paying for a butt plug and you look the cashier in the eye. We can get around that, no shame at all, because the butt plug is coming from an extruder right in the privacy of our own room, aka a shameless plug. Yeah, and privacy and anonymity become particularly important when we're seeking out toys for BDSM. Anyone who wants to should be able to, get tied up, spanked, be enslaved willingly. But BDSM is still pretty heavily misunderstood and stigmatized, sometimes even with legal ramifications. So 3D printing BDSM toys gives us the privacy we really need to enjoy even our most deviant desires. So, okay, how do you make them? How do we build these implements of pleasure? 3D printing, like I said, it's fairly straightforward, but there are some design concepts to keep in mind when you're doing this. You're toiling in a very sensitive area. Just some overall considerations, I'd encourage you to really be adventurous. Each 3D printed toy uses just pennies worth of filament. This is maybe like $2 worth right here. So there's really no downside at all to printing something new or unfamiliar and taking it for a test ride. Call that a penetration test here. There are a few 3D printers out there that even have a way to recycle used plastic that you've used and extrude it into new filament. So assuming you haven't coated your toy in anything, you could even melt down and reuse the plastic of failed experiment over and over and over again. I know that you want to, but it's just what it is. And all good designers also steal, so there's nothing wrong with ripping off someone else's designs. You'll see I mentioned the doorknob test up here. So I have a friend who's an industrial designer, and he was saying that when industrial designers are designing a doorknob that has to feel comfortable in your hand repeatedly, they consider, how would this feel in my butt? So that same logic should obviously apply here when the model you're designing might actually go in your butt. As you can see, avoid creating a toy with edges and sharp corners. If you just look around at any random objects in the world, most of their edges are actually curves, not complete angles. So this becomes even more important with sex toys, since they're going to have repeated direct contact with your skin, whether you're inserting them or locking them around somebody's wrists, clamping them onto nipples, anything. So if you can't get around printing a toy with sharp edges, you just need to be sure to sand it at the end to round out the edges. Also, a very important design feature, when you're making a butt plug or anal toy, it's absolutely necessary, as you see on the right, to make something that has a flange at the base so that it doesn't get stuck up there. You really want to avoid the most awkward doctor's appointment of your life. Yeah, that's a Buzz Lightyear doll up someone's ass. He finally found what was beyond infinity. And also, as you saw on the left on the previous slide, when you're designing a dildo that's going to be used as a strap-on, you want to make sure it has a wide base so that it can sit in a harness without falling out. So those are just some of the basics. 3D printing has some programs that allow for parametric design. So that way, OpenSCAD is one, and it's basically programming plus geometry. So who here knows how to program? Yeah, so you can do this. You can make an infinite loop of sex toys. What you're doing is effectively programming the shapes that make up your toy, but setting variables so you can adjust the different sizes rather than drawing, as in some other programs, drawing something with fixed dimensions. So you can scale it up and down, reusing the same script over and over. make anything on a scale from 0 to damn. Mini me and Dr. Evil. Parametric design is really ideal for, as you see here, if you want to start with something small and work your way up. Also great for something like handcuffs. If you're printing to somebody's custom size wrist, you can adjust the size. So this code is the entirety of what it takes to make up the butt plug that you saw on the previous slide, and this. That's literally it, just a cylinder, another cylinder, etc. And something else. There it is. So you'll see, this is OpenSCAD. It's programmed for the plug. Can change the variable, compile it in real time, and see the changes. Just keeps getting bigger. It's obviously very happy to see you all. So now that you know how to build them, what do you make them out of? This is where the difference between conventional sex shops and 3D printing really shines. Conventional sex shops are usually supplied with pretty low quality sex toys made of the mysterious jelly rubber substance. These toys are porous. They're known to contain phthalates, which are carcinogenic chemicals that are added to plastics and rubbers as a softening agent. And because of the unregulated nature of the sex toy industry, phthalate-laden jelly rubber vibrators and dildos continue to be sold all over the place, even when medical evidence is suggesting severe health risks, and has been for years. I remember writing a paper in college in 2006 about the dangers of phthalates in sex toys, and very little's changed in 7 years. And that makes me a sad panda. So, not to get too down, some boutique sex shops are actively taking a stand against toys with phthalates, but the biocompatible toys that they supply nearly always come at a higher price, and we can do better than that. We don't need to choose between one or the other. So 3D printing lets us decide exactly what our toys are going to be made out of, and we don't need to pay a premium for our safety. That said, certain materials do tend to lend themselves better to certain types of toys, certain types of applications. So when you're deciding what to make it out of, you need to consider the following questions. Most importantly, will this toy be used for penetration? If so, it's really important to use a material that's biocompatible. And that means it has no harmful effects on the human body. So the main characteristics of a biocompatible filament are that it is non-porous. Pores can harbor bacteria, so that's not good. And also that it doesn't leach phthalates or any other chemicals for that matter. A good rule of thumb when selecting material is if you can eat off of it, you can stick it inside you. You also need to consider whether it will need to withstand impact, like a flogger or a paddle or something like that. If so, choosing something flexible like a nylon is important. That way the toy won't shatter when it hits your ass. So now, what can we eat off of? I have to think about slides with bullet points, so I vowed that any bullet point slides would have actual bullet vibrators as the bullets. So PLA, brought a little bit of PLA filament, pass it around in a minute. It's biocompatible, it's widely available. It's one of the most common types of filament. It doesn't have good impact resistance and will shatter with too much force, but otherwise it's pretty strong. This is the stuff that they make from corn and other biomaterials. So giving a meaning to the phrase cornholing. There is also nylon. Talman 618 was the only one for a while. Now they have a 645. Nylon is not only biocompatible, it's what they use for cartilage replacements and bone replacements, prosthetics. So the medical community is latched on, so it's good for our purposes. It's softer, it's more pliable, more impact resistant than PLA, so makes it a really good choice for sex toys. It only comes in one color, but it can be dyed. And for a nice body safe and cheap dye, I recommend Kool-Aid. That's what was used for these. But any fabric nylon dye will work if you're not going to insert it. As far as non-biocompatible materials go, there's wood, which, while it doesn't have any chemicals in it, it's bound by PLA, it's wood chips bound by PLA. It's porous. Wood soaks up water, and so it can soak up bacteria, and you can never really get it clean at the microbial level. So for our purposes, it's really only good for making wood jokes. Now, the non-biocompatible materials still have good applications for other things. ABS, made famous by Legos, is not biocompatible, but it's otherwise very widely available and inexpensive, and so it's good as a toy material that's going to be coated or not inserted. ABS shouldn't be used as a mold for silicone because it will stick to it. I tried caulking some Legos, so I can attest to this. Polycarbonate is one of the less common ones. It's Nalgene plastic. It's not biocompatible. It's got all the chemicals, and it's also not compatible with a lot of printers because it tends to set them on fire. It has high melting points. It is, however, extremely durable, so it might be good for making molds. Now that you've printed it, most sex toys do require some sort of post-processing afterwards. 3D printing tends to leave ridges that can put an undue amount of friction on sensitive skin. So even if your toy doesn't need to be coated, you should probably still sand out the surface to smooth it out. And I'm going to start passing around a couple of toys so you can get a feel for some of them, literally. Resist the temptation to pocket them. Doing so will probably result in an immediate and permanent curse on your sex life. So just feel them and pass them along.
Have they been used?
No.
Come on, everybody was thinking that question.
Of course they were, but I decided to spare you guys. So as you can see, this one, printers they're not always perfect, so sometimes they have a little bit of warp, and so this one's a good example of both success and fail. You can see the difference between the sides that are smoothly sanded and those that got warped and couldn't really be sanded down. It's PLA. So there are some surface treatments that you can do other than just sanding the toys down. You can treat ABS with acetone, and that'll smooth out all of the ridges, kind of melt everything together. Like I said, though, ABS is not body safe, so you will still need to coat it in something if you're planning on using it for penetration. Wood toys can be varnished, though most varnishes aren't really biocompatible, either because they have unsafe chemicals or they leave the wood permeable, either of those reasons. Silicone is good. Silicone is what they make a lot of dildos out of, so it works well for this. You can use a food-safe caulk. Insert caulk joke here. I didn't have one, but you can make up your own. Caulk has mixed results for coating. It's probably better for molding, but as you can see, it kind of gets sticky. As far as other silicone-based coatings go, there is Subaru, which is the really fast-curing silicone. It's great to coat with. I didn't do a perfect job of this, but you can see it makes a nice smooth surface. You can clean it, and it'll be safe. And if you medical grade polyurethane is a little more expensive, but a lot of maker spaces and hacker spaces might have it. So if you can get your hands on something, this will render your toy not only biocompatible, since it's what they make latex condoms out of, or non-latex condoms out of rather, but very smooth and virtually indestructible. Hope it didn't hurt the table. So there's that. And this one is just sanded nylon. So what comes next? Well, I've given you sort of the basic tools, but this is just the beginning of what I hope will be a 3D printing revolution. This isn't an end. We've got a lot more to do, and I hope we can all keep tagging on this and making it even better.
Keep plugging along.
Thank you. Gold star for you. The power is in your hands. So, pass around the nylon. I wanted to leave time at the end for questions because it seems like there would be a bunch, but before I wrap up, I wanted to thank a few people and organizations. The BSides, especially the mentorship program, it was awesome that I got a foot in the door and they paired me with an awesome mentor. I'd also like to thank said awesome mentor, Vhat Malek. He's presenting tomorrow at 12:30. I hope you can't miss. Also, the Eurotrash security podcast guys for letting me come on their show, be the first person to say butt plug on that.
Spark plug?
Butt plug. You can add sparks if you really want. Yeah, they're both presenting during Hacker Summer Week as well. Tripwire for naming me an InfoSec Rising Star and or Hidden Gem. That was kind of cool. Milton Security for choosing me as a winner of subsidized airfare to BSides. And Brendan O'Connor, my favorite person in the world. And if you don't get a chance to have your questions answered here, flag me down at parties or the rest of BSides or DEF CON. And if not, drop me a line. I know I just met you and you probably think I'm crazy, but here's my handle, so. So yeah, long story short, this is about embodying hackerdom in a very intimate way, destroying the status quo because the status is not quo. We are literally sticking it to the man.
Don't you mean sticking it in the man?
Sticking it in the man and to the man or the woman. Yeah, so the battles we fight for sex positivity and privacy, they've been long and hard. And, at times we feel like we've been totally screwed. Yeah, but we've got 3D printing at our fingertips, so we will eventually all come out on top. I saw a few hands in the back.
They were doing other things.
Hand check. Yes.
You mentioned the Alabama anti-run law.
Yes.
Or I guess anti-run law. But being from Alabama, I'm especially against the law. It's fascinating. But given that you made some statements earlier in your talk about the fact that this is a way that people that want to empower themselves can get along with legal regulation of it. Given that 3D printing is coming out, and there have been already comments about, well, what about gun designs and is this the sort of thing? Could you comment at all on what you think that needs to happen now for legal protections, both for sex toys and beyond in the 3D printing space? What are the main issues that we as a community need to be addressing to make sure that this talk can be given in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
You asked a lot of things.
How do we make sure that Alabama doesn't pass an anti-this law?
An anti-this law?
Yeah, an anti-designs for sex toys, making it illegal to download these software.
Yeah, I'm pretty cynical when it comes to public policy change. They've already, since the 3D gun thing, they've already been talking about passing laws to to regulate 3D printers, either do background checks on them or regulate the types of the size of cylinders that you can print on a 3D printer. It's all kind of nuts. It's made by people who, by and large, don't understand technology. So, well, for starters, elect more people who understand the technology. Go to law school and teach them about the technology. Any of the above? Yeah.
Are there any material type of things you would talk about for making a mold of some kind to make sure that whatever would come out of it would be biocompatible?
Yeah, the most common one that I've seen is food-safe silicone caulk. So, yeah, other kinds of like pourable silicone, really, anything like that would work. It's just that one tends to be fairly cheap and fairly widely available, so it's a good place to start.
How the dishwasher microwave say?
I'm guessing you could probably get them in the top rack of your dishwasher. I wouldn't microwave these.
Have you used several different types of 3D printers, and do you favor one for certain types of work or other?
I've used a MakerBot replicator, and most of these were done on Ultimaker. There are 3D printers can come pretty cheap nowadays. You can go in for a few $100s, but there will be limits to what it can do. So there's a really, yeah. So I haven't had a chance to play around with a bunch of different types, but there are advantages to having some that have like a heated bed, for instance, which the Ultimaker didn't, and so there were some issues with nylon sticking to it. So that can make a difference. There are some that the replicator had two different extruders, two different nozzles, so you could do bi-colored things, and that was kind of cool. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question, I don't really have enough of a frame of reference to have one favorite.
How hot does the print head need to be?
I think the print range for nylon is typically about 230 to 260 Celsius. Yeah, it depends on the printer. You just kind of need to play around and see where you can get the best print.
So in general, it's a little bit above ABS then?
Yeah.
What drew your interest to this in particular? What was the genesis of you saying, I'm going to start making sex toys or my favorite?
Mostly because I have a dirty mind. But a few different areas. I mean, I've always been a maker of various things, and so the element of doing something independently drew me to it a lot. And like I said, it's an area where you don't always get the customization that you want or deserve.
Is there anyone else in the same space that's working with you, or is there like a community that any way to do this with you?
Not yet. We should start one. Yeah.
So with the laser sintering patents expiring, it's expected that we'll get higher quality 3D printers at lower prices. How will that change what designs you can push out with this at home? Like, once you have more accurate 3D printers that increase the cost?
I think then you'll be able to, remains yet to be seen, but get a lot more precision and smaller layers and be able to do some really cool things beyond just rote geometric shapes.
You uploaded any of these to like Thingiverse or?
Thingiverse is anti-awesome, so they... No, Thingiverse is great for a lot of purposes. Unfortunately, in their terms of service, they don't like adult content, so there's not really a space for that. I was in the process of starting to design an adult sort of Thingiverse of sorts, but I got accepted at BSides. I got kind of pushed to the back burner, but it's possible it'll exist in the future. There is Dongiverse, but they only have like 2 things on there, and it's called Dongiverse.
What if you brand them as terrible dog toys?
Yeah, or personal massagers, right? That's Hitachi's whole thing. There is a pair of handcuffs that's on there with a wink and a nod. Mhm.
What's the average time do you spend on design, production, and post-production for most of these things?
Design, I usually tend to just take a few minutes on in SolidWorks. These are all sort of similar constructions, so I don't know, maybe once you get a feel for SolidWorks or whatever program you end up using, it just like, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes. As far as printing goes, the thing that I just dropped probably took about 45 minutes. It depends on what your layer height is and a lot of different little factors. As far as post-processing goes, there's a 24-hour cure for things like Subaru and that's great poly. Sanding just takes a few minutes. It's just sanding. Others? Bueller? Holy crap, I talk way too fast. Yeah.
But do you think that the introduction of sex toys by 3D printers might lead to the explosion of the demand for 3D printers at the same rate that born on the internet has similar demand for
God, I hope so. But not only that, it sort of does the same thing that Ford did for the internet. It took away a lot of the shame and the lack of privacy of it. It went from being this sort of skeevy, eye-darting video booth experience where you had to interact with people that really had no business knowing what you'd like to do in bed, and made it into just your own thing, this cornucopia of all kinds of internet porn. And so I hope 3D printers can do the same thing in terms of privacy and liberation.
What was the problem you had with making a mold? Yes, did you have to do it with printers?
I'm sorry?
You mentioned you had a problem with making a mold out of ABS plastic.
Oh, that silicone sticks to ABS, and actually I had heard that before, so I didn't make a mold out of ABS. I just tested it on a couple of Legos, which are made out of ABS plastic. And sure enough, it stuck. Cool. Yep.
In your design, what percentage of the design is fantasy versus biologic reality? Like, do you do research in terms of shapes and things like that? Or is it just, oh, I wonder what this would do?
A little A, a little B. You can actually 3D scan biological reality using a Kinect or other 3D scanner devices, but you can kind of make whatever. So you see everything from way beyond biological reality to way below biological reality. You know, whatever you want. Yeah?
Being sort of an evangelist for using this technology for this.
Can you speak up? I'm a little hard to hear.
Being sort of an evangelist for using technology like this, have you received a lot of negative reaction?
A lot of
Negative reaction?
Not really, actually. I was expecting a little more, maybe more will come after the fact, but it seems like people are very happy to have this and to know about this, and I hope they take it and run with it. I really do. Cool. Well, if you want to know more, flag me down. Other than that, thanks for coming.